Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto x Kurumu x Moka x Mizore? Part 3. If you want more awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Don't be nervous, Yukari-chan. Naruto placed a reassuring hand on Yukari's shoulder. You'll be fine as long as I'm here. He tried guiding the group forward, but the growing crowd was already starting to ogle his companions. Hey dude, one random otaku whispered to his friend. Yeah, I see them, the friend replied, eyes widening. Check it out. They're hot. That girl's so cute. Her face and style are perfect. Another guy chimed in, drooling as his gaze darted from Moka to Kurumu. That one has enormous, chest. A college-age guy stuttered, unable to tear his eyes from Kurumu. And they all look like models. Someone else muttered in awe. Naruto clenched his teeth. Come on, girls, let's hurry, he said firmly, wanting to escape the perverts. I've seen enough widows at the academy, and these are no better. Is that cosplay? Someone yelled. Whoa! A witch! She's adorable! Screeched an obvious Lilicon. Mui! Another fat, chubby otaku wailed, shuffling closer. Back off! Naruto roared, sending the creeps stumbling away in a panic. He quickly guided everyone into a side alley, hoping to catch their breath. Yukari trembled, hugging herself. What's with humans? They're just like those monsters at school. I'm nothing but a toy for their amusement. Sukun, who'd stayed close to her side, stepped up before Naruto could speak. Yukari-chan, it's all right. I know it's overwhelming. We should have expected some reaction, but... Stop lying! Yukari shouted, tears gathering in her eyes. You don't understand how I feel. None of you do. Humans and witches. We're too different. She slammed her eyes shut, tears rolling down her cheeks. Yukari. Sukun reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. I might be human, but I'm still your friend. I'm sorry I haven't done more to protect you. Before either of them could continue, a crow swooped down between them, cawing loudly. More crows flapped in from overhead, their raucous cries filling the alley. Kaya! What's with these birds? Moka yelled, swatting at the feathery mass as they descended. Naruto swiped his arm in a wide arc, sending several crows crashing into the wall. In the chaos, no one noticed the slender figure who slipped behind Yukari, muffling her screams with a hand and whisking her away. When the final birds dispersed, Moka realized what had happened. Huh! Yukari-chan's gone. Her eyes darted around frantically. Hey guys! Yukari's disappeared. Naruto sniffed the air, frustration etched on his face. Damn it! There's a faint scent here, someone we didn't notice before. When Yukari opened her eyes again, she sat on a rooftop, feeling cold and dazed. She blinked as she scanned her surroundings. Where am I? She murmured. You're awake, came a calm voice. A girl about 16 stood at the rooftop's edge, hair in braids pinned to one side. Her tattered clothing looked nearly battle-worn, skirt torn as if it would fall apart any moment. A single crow perched delicately on her outstretched hand. I saw how frightened you were, young witch, the mysterious girl said gently. I'm Ruby, from the witch's ranch. I couldn't bear to leave you with those humans. Yukari stared at her, trying to gather her wits. The mention of another witch sent a spark of hope through her. But Ruby's tone soon turned icy as she gestured to the sprawling city below. The city has nothing, no real wind, no natural water, not a single flower in sight. It's full of selfishness and greed, Ruby said, voice cracking with bitterness. Surely you understand, witches and humans can never coexist. She faced Yukari again, taking her hands in a soft but urgent grip. Those same humans plan to destroy our sunflower field, our ranch. They threaten our home, and we need your help to protect it. Yukari's eyes flickered as she listened, heart pounding. Ruby offered her a bright sunflower. For a moment, Yukari thought of the warm, safe garden she cherished at the academy. Then Ruby spoke again. "Will you help us fight back?" she pleaded. When Yukari finally nodded, Ruby squealed in delight, hugging her so tight it nearly crushed her. "Yay! We're going to be such good friends." "Ruby-san!" Yukari stammered, startled by the abrupt change in the older witch's demeanor. Before Yukari could fully respond, a familiar voice broke through. "Yukari? What's going on here?" Another followed, distinctly female. "Yeah, what is happening?" They both turned to see Naruto, Moka, Kurumu, and Sukun hurrying onto the rooftop. Sukun's anxious eyes found Yukari immediately, relief washing over him. Ruby stiffened, dark energy radiating off her as she faced them. "You humans again. How did you find us?" Naruto spoke first. The murder of crows overhead was kind of a giveaway. He locked eyes with Yukari. "We heard everything, Yukari-chan. I'm not mad. I'm sorry for not trying to understand you earlier." He took a breath, forcing his voice steady. "If you really can't handle this city anymore, let's just go home." Hot tears rimmed Yukari's eyes. She took a step toward Naruto and Sukun, who stood protectively at her side only for Naruto to suddenly twist away. A faint slice tore through his sleeve. "Hey, that shirt was new," Naruto muttered, noticing blood trickling from a shallow cut on his shoulder. His body then vanished in a burst of crimson. A second later, his voice rang out from behind Ruby. "Kaigi Bunshin, you got the clone, but that wasn't very nice." Ruby's arm rippled and formed black, crow-like wings. "Don't act like you care about Yukari-chan's suffering," she growled. "She belongs with us, not with humans who belittle or use her." In an instant, her wings lashed out toward Naruto, Moka, Sukun, and Kurumu. Naruto's eyes flashed red with fury, and Sukun instinctively moved in front of Yukari, shielding her. But Yukari herself darted forward, positioning herself between Ruby and her friends. "Yukari!" Sukun yelled, trying to pull her back. One of Ruby's wings grazed Yukari's cheek, drawing a fine line of blood. Naruto lunged in time to keep the blow from being fatal. "Yukari, why?" Ruby's face contorted in disbelief. "I won't let you hurt my friends," Yukari said, tears lining her eyes. "No matter how unfairly humans treat us witches sometimes, these people truly care about me." Ruby's entire body shook with anger. I can't accept that. Humans have done nothing but destroy and take from us. How can their friendship mean more than the pride of the witches?" Before she could launch another strike, Naruto's chakra flared violently, stunning Ruby. "Die!" she shrieked, attempting to attack once more. Naruto slipped past her guard and slammed his palm into her stomach. Ruby gasped, eyes wide, then collapsed, her crow-like wings vanishing. Naruto caught her before she hit the rooftop. "We'll take her with us for now," he announced. No one objected, though tension still hung heavily in the air. Night fell by the time the group regrouped in the darkened streets. Moka and Yukari sat on a bench beside the unconscious Ruby, while Sukun paced, scanning every sign they passed. "It's late, and we still haven't found our motel," Moka lamented. "We're totally separated from Nikonome-sensei, and I can't just leave this girl lying here." Naruto stood guard a few steps away, crossing his arms as he surveyed the empty road. Kurumu hovered behind him, keeping watch on passing cars. Meanwhile, Sukun noticed how Yukari clung to the unconscious Ruby's arm, conflicted. He quietly took a seat next to her. "Yukari-chan," he said softly, "are you okay?" Yukari looked down, fiddling with the hem of her skirt. I'm not sure. Ruby made me see that I'm not the only witch around." That felt good. But everything she said about humans, sometimes I wonder if she's right. I've seen how cruel people can be. Sukun took a deep breath, gently resting his hand atop hers. Humans can be cruel, yes. But not all of us are like that. If we were, I wouldn't be here, or want to protect you. She peeked up, eyes damp. Tsukun. He smiled shakily. Remember when you first cast those silly spells on me to get my attention back at the academy? You were trying so hard to be noticed and accepted. I've never forgotten that. Her cheeks went warm at the memory. I just wanted someone to see me as more than some little kid. Exactly, Tsukun said, voice earnest. No matter how different we are, witch, vampire, succubus, or just plain human, let's try to understand each other. So don't give up on us, okay? For the first time that night, Yukari managed a genuine smile. Thank you, Tsukun. The two sat there quietly for a moment, letting the tension slip away. Not far off, Naruto glanced back, noticing the gentle exchange. He caught Moka's eye and nodded, as if silently acknowledging that Tsukun was helping in a way only he could. Finally, Naruto broke the hush. We should probably find somewhere safe to stay. He adjusted Ruby in his arms, making sure not to jostle her. I'll scout around for the motel or any place that can accommodate us. If anyone tries messing with us again, I'm ready. Moka stood, stretching. I'll go with you, maybe the two of us can spot signs more easily. Kurumu snatched up her small bag. I'll stay here with Tsukun, Yukari, and Ruby. As Naruto and Moka disappeared around the corner, Tsukun looked down at Yukari. Try to relax a little, okay? I'll make sure no one else bothers you or Ruby. Yukari leaned closer to Tsukun's side, letting the day's turmoil simmer down at last. In her chest, the pain of being misunderstood still burned, but Tsukun's quiet, comforting presence soothed her. She whispered, I don't know what's coming next, but thank you for being here. Tsukun smiled gently, resting a hand on her shoulder. Always. A trio of flickering street lamps cast hazy pools of light onto the cracked sidewalks. Nestled in the soft glow, Moka and Yukari sat side by side on a long bench, with an unconscious Ruby propped up between them. Kurumu leaned against the bench's wooden arm, arms folded across her chest, while Naruto stood guard a few steps away. Tsukun hovered protectively near Yukari, concern etched on his face. Somewhere off in the distance, the hustle and bustle of the human city continued unabated, cars honking, neon signs flickering, but here, in this quiet corner, they were effectively on their own. I can't believe we haven't found the motel, Moka said, hugging her arms around herself against the evening chill. We've been wandering for ages, and still no Nikonome-sensei or bus driver in sight. And we can't just leave this girl, Naruto gestured to the unconscious Ruby, lying around in an alley. She might try to attack us again if she wakes up, but still. We can't exactly ditch her. Kurumu let out a weary sigh. It's not like we can call the police and say, hey, can you hold on to this crowing witch who tried to kill us? They'd think we were crazy. Moka frowned slightly, glancing at Yukari. How are you feeling, Yukari-chan? You took a nasty cut back there. Indeed, Yukari sported a faint scratch across her cheek, courtesy of Ruby's wing. It had stopped bleeding but still looked raw. She touched it self-consciously before replying in a subdued voice. I'm okay, she said, though her tone betrayed lingering stress. It barely hurts. As the group debated their next move, Tsukun stepped closer to Yukari, concern shining in his eyes. A summer wind rippled through his hair, carrying the distant noise of the city with it. Hey, Yukari-chan, he said softly, hoping not to startle her, you've been through a lot today. Maybe, let me check your wound? Yukari blinked, momentarily caught off guard by his earnestness. She nodded, allowing Tsukun to lean in. He dabbed gently at the scratch with a piece of gauze someone had managed to fish out of a first aid kit. Under the street lamp's light, Tsukun's brow furrowed in concentration. Tsukun, Yukari began, barely above a whisper. Thank you for worrying about me. He offered a small, reassuring smile. We're friends, right? And he paused, feeling a warmth spread across his cheeks. I just hate seeing you hurt. Yukari's heart fluttered, a rush of emotion momentarily canceling out the pain. Despite her earlier assertions that humans and witches could never truly understand each other, Sukun's gentle expression felt like a challenge to that belief. She bit her lip, uncertain, but a shy smile curved her lips anyway. "I'm sorry if I made you worry," she murmured, voice trembling slightly. "I said some harsh things before, about not belonging in the human world. But you came for me anyway." Sukun nodded, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and sincerity. "We all did. Naruto, Moka, Kurumu, we care about you, Yukari-chan. Just because it's difficult for witches and humans to see eye to eye sometimes, doesn't mean we can't be close." They held each other's gaze for a long moment, a soft, unspoken understanding passing between them. The intimate pause was interrupted when Kurumu cleared her throat, a knowing look on her face. "So, guys, hate to break up the moment, but we need a place to crash, remember?" Naruto straightened, cracking his knuckles absently. "Yeah, we're stuck out here with no motel in sight. And it's not safe to keep wandering around when we're lugging an unconscious person who might wake up swinging." "Could we hail a taxi and go to another hotel?" Moka suggested timidly. Kurumu grimaced. "With what money? The bus driver took off with most of our wallets. Remember, we loaded our bags on the bus. I've only got a few spare bills in my pocket." An uncomfortable silence fell. They all felt stranded in the vast cityscape, cut off from the safety net of Yokai Academy. Finally, Sukun cleared his throat. "I have a little cash," he offered. "It's not enough for multiple rooms, but maybe we could find a small place that'll let us stay in one room for the night." Moka's eyes lit up. "We should at least try. It's better than staying on the streets." "Right," Naruto agreed, glancing down at Ruby. "We'll bring her with us. Once she's awake, we can figure out what to do next. No more fighting unless we have no choice." Everyone nodded. Carefully, Naruto hoisted Ruby into a fireman's carry. Kurumu teased him half-heartedly, "Easy there, big guy, don't get too cozy." But her joking lacked its usual bite. Exhaustion weighed on them all. They set off through the dimly lit streets, sticking to sidewalks beneath the glow of neon signs. The city seemed to pulse with unfamiliar life, locals out for late dinners, occasional groups of rowdy teenagers, a stray cat or two slinking by. Yet it was also lonely, for none of these human bystanders could imagine the real nature of the ragtag group passing them. As they walked, Sukun fell into step beside Yukari, ensuring she didn't lag behind. "You sure you're holding up okay?" he asked again gently. Yukari nodded, summoning a bit more confidence into her voice. "I promise I'm fine. My magic's low, but I can manage." She hesitated, then spoke more softly. "Thank you for helping me realize I'm not alone. I wasn't sure before." Sukun gave her a kind smile, and even in the dull city light, Yukari's cheeks colored faintly. They walked on in comfortable silence, occasionally sharing a small glance. Eventually, after ducking down a few side streets, they discovered a cramped sign that read vacancy above a weathered doorway. A bored-looking clerk at the front desk eyed them suspiciously as they entered. "We just need a place for the night," Naruto explained, positioning himself so the clerk couldn't see Ruby's unconscious face. "One room, please. We can pay." The clerk looked uncertain. 6 people in one room was unusual, but Sukun discreetly slid some money across the desk, and they received a single key in return. It was far from luxurious: 2 creaky twin beds, mismatched curtains, and a small couch. A flickering overhead light illuminated faded yellow walls. Still, it beat sleeping on the street. Naruto gently lowered Ruby onto one of the beds, Moka and Kurumu settling on either side of her in case she woke up aggressive. Yukari and Sukun ended up on the worn-out couch at the room's far wall. Despite the cramped conditions, the small separation gave them a bit of privacy. Sukun draped his jacket over Yukari's lap, thinking she might be cold. "Thank you," she murmured, fingering the edge of the jacket. "You really are kind, Sukun." He tried to wave off the compliment, cheeks warming. No, it's just basic decency. But before he could finish, Yukari scooted closer, her eyes bright and sincere. I know you're being humble, but trust me, not everyone would do the same. It means a lot that you came after me, especially since I'm not always easy to deal with. Sukun's heart thumped against his ribcage. For a moment, they both recalled Yukari's initial prickly nature, her teasing, her stinging remarks, her reluctance around humans. Now, though, a gentler side of her was emerging. He found himself smiling, hoping it conveyed the acceptance he wanted her to feel. I'm really glad you're part of our group, he said. All of us make mistakes, and we'll keep making them. But I want you to know we'll always be there for you. I'll always be there for you. A soft giggle escaped Yukari. I'll hold you to that. Hesitantly, she reached out and gave Sukun's hand a quick squeeze. It was an innocent, fleeting touch, but it sent a jolt of warmth through both of them. Naruto lingered by the door, arms folded as he listened for any sign of trouble from the hallway. Kurumu glanced over from where she stood near Ruby. Naruto, you should get some rest too, she said. You've been on high alert since the fight with Ruby. Naruto shrugged, stifling a yawn. I'll sleep in a minute. Just want to make sure nothing else creeps up on us. Moka watched him with fond concern. We'll take shifts if we have to. Don't overdo it, Naruto-kun. Naruto's gaze softened at Moka's words, and he nodded. All right. Just a few more minutes. At last, quiet fell over the cramped room. The tension, though still present, felt diminished in the worn-out hush. Moka and Kurumu lay a few feet away from Ruby, who remained fast asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. Naruto eventually settled on the floor with a spare blanket. On the couch, Sukun and Yukari tried to find comfortable positions. Yukari dozed off first, her head drooping lightly onto Tsukun's shoulder. He stiffened at the unexpected contact but then relaxed, letting her lean on him. A soft smile played on his lips, his own eyelids felt heavy now. Good night, Yukari-chan, he whispered, carefully shifting so she wouldn't wake. Though her eyes were closed, Yukari murmured a response. Night, Sukun. A gentle calm pervaded the tiny hotel room as they all drifted into much-needed sleep, unaware of what fresh challenges the morning might bring, unaware that somewhere, in the darkness beyond the city, the old witch was already plotting her next move. Night had fallen in earnest over the human city by the time Ruby disappeared into the sky, her black crow trailing behind like a silent sentinel. Down in the empty street, Naruto, Moka, Kurumu, Sukun, and Yukari stood with heavy hearts. Yukari's wand glowed faintly at her side, reflecting the swirl of emotions in the young witch's chest. She gripped it tightly, brow furrowed. Ruby-san, she thought, her mind replaying the older witch's anguished confession about losing her parents to a drunk driver. Sukun hovered protectively near Yukari. He'd seen the anguish in her eyes when Ruby flew away and wanted to reassure her. But how? He wondered. Everything felt so complicated. Ruby-san! Come back! Kurumu called into the darkness, though there was no reply. Her voice echoed down the deserted block unanswered. Naruto exhaled, frustration visible in the tense set of his jaw. She's already out of range. I can't pick up her scent. He glanced at Yukari, then at Sukun. We'll figure something out, but for now, let's regroup. We don't want to be wandering these streets all night. Moka tugged gently on Naruto's sleeve. Right. Let's go back to the hotel. Nikonome-sensei and the bus driver said they'd be around tomorrow morning. With resigned nods all around, the group turned and headed back. The hotel lobby was nearly empty when they slipped inside. Neon lights from across the street blinked dully through the front window, illuminating their tired faces. Up in their single cramped room, they found Nikonome-sensei lounging on one of the beds, happily nibbling on fish crackers from a freshly purchased box. Oh, hi everyone! Nikonome greeted, oblivious to the tension. You were gone so long. I ended up finding the bus driver a little while ago. He said we'll be heading out tomorrow for more research, after we check out some nice sushi restaurants. The entire group face-faulted at her carefree attitude, but no one had the energy to argue. Not now. Moments later, Moka and Kurumu slid over to the far side of the room, quietly discussing what they'd do next about Ruby. Naruto stood at the small kitchenette, downing a cup of water while mulling over the older witch's words. Yukari, too restless to sit, wandered to the window. She pressed her forehead against the glass, staring out at the city lights. Sukun watched her for a second before joining her. Yukari-chan, he said softly, are you okay? She didn't turn immediately, but let out a shaky breath. I just keep thinking about Ruby-san. She's alone in this huge city. It's not safe out there, especially if that older witch is planning something awful. Sukun nodded, resting a tentative hand on her shoulder. Ruby-san, she has so much pain in her heart. But maybe that means she needs a friend more than anyone. Yukari turned around slowly, meeting his gaze. The flickering city lights reflected in her eyes, which shone with tears she was trying to hold back. It's like she's convinced herself she can't live any other way than hating humans. I know. Sukun's voice was quiet but firm. But I don't believe that's who she truly is. You heard her, she said she wished she'd met us sooner. That small memory brought a faint smile to Yukari's lips. Yeah, she did say that. She took a step closer, and Sukun reflexively took her hands. Neither of them acknowledged how natural it felt. We'll bring her back, Sukun promised, and we'll show her she doesn't have to be alone. His tone was filled with conviction that warmed Yukari's heart. Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment, allowing herself to believe. Then she breathed out and squeezed Sukun's hands gently. Thank you, Sukun. Soon enough, the group gathered in a loose circle around the little table in the hotel room. Nikanome-sensei dozed off in the corner, snoring softly with a half-eaten fish cracker dangling from her mouth. Naruto looked across the table at Moka, Kurumu, Sukun, and Yukari. We need a plan, Naruto said in a low voice, mindful not to wake their sleeping teacher. Ruby's run off, and we know her master plans to incinerate the city. If we don't intervene, who knows how many people could be hurt? Moka fiddled with the hem of her blouse. I feel terrible for Ruby-san. She's obviously hurting. But we can't ignore the danger her master poses to everyone. Kurumu nodded, crossing her arms. If we don't find a way to get through to Ruby-san, and soon, she's going to help that old witch destroy the city. She said she's some sort of general. Ruby-san's confusion is our best chance, Yukari whispered, gaze steady. She's torn between her hatred of humans and her desire for acceptance. I think if we can reach out to her again, really reach her, she might not go through with it. Sukun set down a small tourist map on the table. The bus driver mentioned the sunflowers are growing near the so-called witch's ranch. That's probably where the older witch is. If we head out first thing in the morning, maybe we can intercept Ruby before she returns to her master. Yukari leaned over the map, her eyes tracing the marked roads. We'll have to pass through those fields again. We saw what those mutated plants can do, but maybe we can find a safe route. Naruto sighed, flicking a glance at Nikanome-sensei's scattered guides, mostly sushi brochures and aquarium coupons. Leave it to sensei to give us a map that only highlights fish spots, he said wryly, drawing a faint snicker from Kurumu. Still, they had a direction, even if it was vague. All right, Naruto continued, we'll rest up tonight. First thing tomorrow, we'll ask the bus driver to drop us off near Witch's Ranch. We'll find Ruby, keep the city safe, and figure out a way to stop that older witch. Yukari nodded resolutely. This time, I won't hesitate to protect the people I care about. That includes Ruby-san. After finalizing their plan, the group prepared to settle down. Kurumu grabbed some blankets, Moka checked the door lock, and Naruto coaxed the snoozing Nikanome-sensei into a more comfortable sleeping position. The cramped room became a tangle of limbs and pillows as they tried to fit everyone. Yukari, however, felt too restless to sleep. She scooted into a corner where an old window air conditioner rattled faintly. Peering outside, she spotted the moon, pale and bright against the dark sky. The city lights glittered below, a reminder of human life still buzzing at such a late hour. Sukun, noticing Yukari was missing from the makeshift bedding, quietly got up and approached her. "Mind if I sit?" he asked softly. Yukari smiled and gestured for him to join her, which he did, carefully wedging himself between the AC unit and a stack of Nikonome's fish boxes. For a few heartbeats, they simply looked at each other, either speaking. The closeness of the cramped corner made Yukari aware of how fast her heart pounded. "What are you thinking about?" Sukun finally asked. "I'm just..." Yukari turned her gaze to the window. "Wondering if I'm strong enough to help Ruby-san, if I can do for her what you guys did for me." Sukun's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Back at Yokai Academy," she explained, "I was always teased for being the youngest, the kid genius. I lashed out a lot. But you, all of you, you still cared about me. You refused to abandon me even when I was difficult." Her voice trembled slightly, recalling how her bond with the newspaper club had begun. She had been lonely, brash, and uncertain, yet they'd stayed. How many times did I push them away? She remembered the recent fight with Kurumu, how they bickered over silly insults but still came together when it mattered. "I'm worried Ruby-san will reject us no matter what," she continued, "that her hatred runs too deep. But then I think about how I used to push you away, Sukun, and you never gave up on me." Sukun felt warmth spread through his chest. A gentle smile shaped his lips as he recalled how Yukari had softened over time, how she'd started to care about each of them. "Ruby-san might be hurting in ways we can't fully understand," he said, voice gentle. "But that doesn't mean it's hopeless. If there's even a small chance she wants something else, some other life, then we should help her see that." A tear slid down Yukari's cheek, but it was accompanied by a soft laugh. "You're too kind, Sukun. You act so normal, but you have this uncanny ability to make me believe everything's going to be okay." He reached up and brushed the tear away with his thumb, his own cheeks heating up at the tender contact. "Hey, I'm just telling the truth." They locked eyes, and for a moment, the air between them seemed charged with possibility. Yukari's face flushed, and she glanced away, heart drumming. But then she mustered her courage, leaning sideways so her shoulder touched his. "Thank you," she whispered, letting her head rest on his arm. Sukun exhaled softly, wrapping an arm around Yukari in a gentle, protective gesture. He could feel the slight tremble in her body slowly ease. "Anytime," he replied, voice barely above a whisper. In that quiet pocket of night, they found solace in each other's presence, a newfound closeness built on trust and understanding. Morning came all too soon. Pale sunlight crept through the threadbare curtains, revealing strewn blankets and half-asleep friends. Nikonome-sensei yawned loudly, startling everyone awake. "Time to go, kids," she sang, wide awake. "We still have a full research itinerary, plus fish samples to collect." The bus driver was indeed waiting outside, leaning against the rickety bus with a cigar in his mouth. He gave them a mysterious grin as they piled in. Naruto, carrying a small pack of supplies, locked eyes with Sukun, Moka, Kurumu, and Yukari. Each nodded in turn, knowing they were about to confront something far larger than any of them alone. Inside the bus, Nikonome-sensei unrolled her silly map, which showcased fish restaurants more prominently than actual roads. Naruto took the map from her, shaking his head in disbelief. "Leave it to Sensei to highlight only sushi joints and aquariums," he muttered wryly. Yukari offered a small laugh, her eyes flicking to Sukun. Despite the tension, that shared humor gave her confidence. "I'm sorry, everyone, for how I acted before," she said, rising slightly from her seat so they could all see her. "Even if witches and humans come from different worlds, I care about all of you. I won't give up on Ruby-san or on us." Kurumu let out a playful snort. "Heh, about time." You're definitely not the wimpy Yukari I used to know. The succubus gave her a friendly jab in the arm. We'll get through this together. Moka beamed. Right. As long as we're a team, we can do anything. Naruto nodded, crossing his arms. That's settled then. Bus driver, can you get us as close to Witch's Ranch as possible? The driver's only response was a cryptic chuckle. Hey, you kids sure know how to pick an adventure. Hop on. I'll take you there. Beyond the sprawling sunflower fields, in a remote corner of Witch's Ranch, the older witch stood among her grotesque, half-grown plant soldiers. Their vines twitched in anticipation. A crow circled overhead, cawing in alarm. Ruby! Where are you, child? The old witch muttered, voice dripping with contempt. You must return. The time draws near, and your place is by my side. She waved a gnarled staff, funneling magical energy into the earth. As if responding to her fury, the sunflowers shuddered, leaves rustling in a rising wind. Farther away, the city glimmered in the morning sun, ignorant of its peril. With a final snarl, she turned her attention to a swirling cauldron. Let the fools come, she hissed. They'll regret crossing me. The newspaper club, with Naruto at the helm, sets off in the rickety bus to face the looming darkness at Witch's Ranch. Ruby, tormented by grief and hatred, hovers between her master's commands and the unspoken bond she shares with Yukari and the others. Sukun and Yukari, growing ever closer, brace themselves for a battle not only against monstrous plants, but against the despair fueling Ruby's heart. Ruby's wings trembled as she descended from the blood-red twilight, each feather quivering with barely contained fear. The sunflowers below swayed like silent witnesses to her shame, their faces turned away as if they couldn't bear to watch what was coming. Master. The words caught in her throat as she landed, the convenience store drink clutched in her white-knuckled grip like a shield. Her master's eyes, which were cold as winter frost, fixed on the aluminum can. A single gesture sent vines whipping through the air, their movement too fast to follow. The drink exploded in Ruby's hand, sticky sweetness mixing with drops of blood where the metal had cut her palm. The crows whispered to me of your defeat, her master's voice dripped acid. Beaten by humans. Like a common familiar. Each word struck like physical blows, making Ruby flinch. Please, I can explain. Ruby's words died as vines coiled around her throat, thorns pressing against her skin with deadly promise. The ancient tome materialized in her master's hands, its pages crackling with malevolent energy that made the air itself taste of copper and rot. Your parents screamed when they burned, her master hissed. Have you forgotten their voices? The smell of their flesh? And now you cavort with their murderers. The vines tightened, drawing pinpricks of blood. Raisin Gan! Twin spheres of pure chakra screamed through the air, their song like 1,000 birds taking flight. The vines disintegrated, atomic bonds shredded by the raw power. Naruto caught Ruby as she fell, his arms steel bands of protection around her trembling form. His eyes blazed with an ancient fury that made even the sunflowers lean away. Behind them, the yellow school bus drifted to a stop in a move that would make street racers weep with envy. Dust and petals swirled in its wake, creating a momentary golden storm. Might have broken the sound barrier back there, the bus driver drawled, stepping out with his signature cigar painting orange trails in the twilight. His hidden eyes gleamed with something that wasn't quite humor. Worth it. Kurumu stumbled out next, her usual grace abandoned. You're completely insane. But her eyes found Naruto's, and the look they shared spoke volumes about chosen mates and bonds stronger than death. Sukun emerged like a warrior now, not the timid boy he'd once been. Months of training under Naruto had transformed him, every movement precise and deadly. His first instinct was to check on Yukari, their shared glance carrying the weight of unspoken feelings. Why? Ruby's whisper carried the weight of years of loneliness. Naruto's smile was gentle, but his eyes remained locked on the threat. Because family fights for each other. Always. Moka stepped forward, silver hair dancing like moonlight given form. Her hand found Naruto's shoulder, and the air itself seemed to hum with their connection. No one touches our own. So these are the vermin. The master's power exploded outward like a physical force, making the earth groan in protest. The book in her hands began to pulse with sickly light. My garden needs fertilizer. Your bones will do nicely. The ground split open with the sound of tearing flesh. Plant monsters erupted from the earth, nightmarish amalgamations of Venus flytraps and ancient horrors. Their eyes glowed with unholy hunger, bodies writhing masses of thorn vines that seemed to drink in the fading light. Every flower, every stem, the master's voice rose to a fever pitch. They're all my children. My vengeance! The monsters surged forward in a wave of chittering mandibles and reaching vines. Naruto's hands blurred through seals, and a wall of fire turned the first rank to ash. The flames cast strange shadows across his face, highlighting something ancient and terrible in his eyes. Sukun moved like living lightning, each strike precise and devastating. Plant monsters exploded under his enhanced strength, their ichor painting the ground in abstract patterns. His training showed in every movement, no energy wasted, no strike without purpose. Impossible! The master seethed. No human could. You still don't see it, Naruto's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. This isn't protecting Ruby. It's destroying everything she loves. The words hit Ruby like physical blows, tears streaming down her face as truth crashed through years of carefully constructed walls. Kurumu took to the sky, her true form revealed in all its deadly beauty. Her claws extended like silver moonlight, carving through the horde with lethal grace. Below, Yukari's magic transformed the battlefield into a deadly dance, her tarot cards becoming instruments of destruction. I won't let you hurt my precious people. Yukari's declaration rang with power beyond her years. Touch my mates and die. Kurumu's aerial acrobatics left trails of destruction in her wake. The master's fury peaked like a tsunami. A vine, faster than thought, pierced Ruby's shoulder. She collapsed into Naruto's arms, her blood staining the sunflower's crimson. Ruby! The cry came from all of them, but none louder than her master, whose face twisted with something beyond rage, something that might have been regret. The book's centerpiece began to pulse like an infected heart, its light painting the world in shades of blood. Reality itself seemed to warp, transforming the idyllic field into a wasteland of human refuse and decay. This is their plan, the master screamed. They'll turn our sacred places into monuments to their greed. I understand more than you know, Naruto's voice carried centuries of wisdom. Humans can be destructive, selfish, cruel. But they can also be kind, selfless, beautiful. For every act of destruction, there's an act of creation. For every moment of hate, there's a moment of love. His voice grew stronger, carrying power that made the very air vibrate. Do innocent children deserve death for the sins of others? Does the newborn deserve punishment for crimes not yet committed? Give me a chance, and I'll have this place protected. No more death. No more pain. Hope flickered like a candle in a storm. For a moment, the master's eyes softened. Then all hell broke loose. The battle that followed would become legend. Naruto and Moka moved as one, their combined power turning plant monsters to dust. Kurumu's aerial strikes complemented Yukari's magical barrage, while Sukun protected their flanks with devastating precision. But it was Ruby's sacrifice that changed everything. As the master's ultimate attack aimed for Moka's heart, Ruby threw herself between them. The sound of vines piercing flesh echoed across the battlefield like a gunshot. Blood trickled from Ruby's smile as she looked at her master one final time. Please, stop this, she whispered. It's over. What followed would haunt their nightmares. The master, consumed by grief and madness, absorbed Ruby's body into her monstrous form. Her laughter, mixed with tears, shattered the evening calm. Such power, such life. Ruby. But even in death, Ruby's sacrifice sparked hope. Her broken scepter, wielded by Moka with terrible purpose, became Salvation's key. The book's centerpiece, the source of all this horror, shattered under her precise strike. As the massive form began to collapse, a memory played before them, young Ruby and her master, surrounded by sunflowers, sharing a moment of pure love that transcended the darkness to come. "Forgive me," the master's final words floated on the wind. "You were always my everything." The explosion should have been the end. But when the light faded, the bus driver stood there, Ruby's unconscious but breathing form cradled in his arms. "Well," he grinned around his ever-present cigar, "ain't that something? Seems love's stronger than hate after all." The old witch used her last breath to save her student. Joy replaced sorrow as they gathered around Ruby's sleeping form. The ranch would be preserved, not through violence but through understanding, just as Ruby had always dreamed. And somewhere, in fields of endless sunflowers, a master and student found peace at last. The bell in the clock tower above Gakuen Academy tolled 7 slow, resonant notes, and the early morning mist clinging to the marble parapets scattered into silver ribbons. Its echo found the still quiet front courtyard where dew-soaked hedges lined a cobblestone walk, and where a single maintenance man in patched overalls whistled tunelessly while sweeping fallen sakura petals into neat piles. The academy never seemed so peaceful as it did at first light when the gargoyles still yawned stone dust from their jaws and most students, monster or otherwise, remained tangled in dormitory sheets. Naruto Uzumaki liked to run the loop behind the headmaster's manor at that hour. He came barefoot and shirtless today, the damp grass cool under his soles, steam feathering from his breath in the mountain chill. Each stride drove yesterday's adrenaline further from his blood until only a pleasant ache remained. Halfway through the circuit he broke rhythm, sensing someone else on the path. A girl's silhouette resolved at the end of the alley, framed by twin rows of cherry trunks whose petals still drifted like pale snow. Her distinctive crow-black braids and ankle-length pinafore left no doubt. Ruby Tojo stood perfectly still, gloved hands folded before her. Dawn gilded her cheeks and the delicate scar now crossing her collarbone, a lingering souvenir from the witch she had once called master. She bowed when Naruto approached, a motion so graceful it seemed ritual. "Naruto-san." Her voice was softer than the wind combing the blossoms. "Good morning." "Morning." He slowed to a walk, rubbing the back of his neck. "Couldn't sleep either?" Ruby smiled. "I slept more soundly last night than I have in years. Yet I woke before the sun. Habit, perhaps." "And the shoulder?" He gestured to her bandaged arm. "Healing well." She flexed experimentally. Yukari-chan insisted on redressing it at 3 separate intervals. "I suspect she fears I'll crumble if she so much as blinks." She learned from the best naggers. Naruto chuckled, picturing Kurumu's bossy scowl hovering behind Yukari's smaller frame. "Speaking of little witchlets, today's the big day. You ready?" A shadow crossed Ruby's violet eyes, excitement tempered by anxiety. "Chairman Mikigami's offer is beyond what I deserve. An aide to the headmaster? After what Her voice cracked. She inhaled, let it out slowly. "I'm frightened I'll misstep and shame everyone who vouched for me." Naruto reached, laid a broad, warm palm atop her clasped hands. "Listen. Second chances aren't gifts, they're seeds. You plant 'em, you water 'em, you grow. Nobody expects you to bloom overnight." He squeezed gently. "Besides, you've got friends now. The newspapers club's got your back. And Sakun's, well, he's practically adopted you already." Ruby's lips quirked. He did hover the entire time Yukari applied ointment. They shared a quiet laugh that rippled through the alley. Far above, a passing murder of crows wheeled and croaked approvingly before settling into higher branches. When the laughter faded, Ruby's gaze drifted toward the distant administration spire. "I should prepare. The chairman said to present myself at 8 sharp. "I'll walk with you." Naruto scooped up his discarded orange hoodie from a nearby bench, tugged it over his bare chest. "Headmaster's office is a maze." He flicked a mischievous wink. "Come on. Sunrise waits for nobody." They set off side by side, shoes clicking on damp stone. Ruby's patent flats proper and measured, Naruto's bare feet slapping carefree. Sakura petals clung to his calf muscles. Dew darkened the hem of her pinafore. Neither hurried. The hush between them felt companionable. The chairman's antechamber resembled less an office suite and more an eccentric greenhouse. Ivory lilies spilled from glazed urns, while thorny night-blooming cereus hung in brass cages high along the rafters. A faint sweetness tinted the air, the unmistakable perfume of moon lotus, cultivated only by master botanists. Ruby inhaled and exhaled, letting the fragrance settle her nerves. Behind a lacquered desk shaped like an unfurled scroll sat Tenmei Mikagami, chairman, rumored sage, and puppet master of more clandestine affairs than even Naruto could track. He looked every bit his legend, gray hair drawn into a monkish topknot, dark glasses reflecting nothing, cream kimono embroidered with swirling dragons. The corners of his lips hinted at amusement the moment Naruto knocked. "Enter, Uzumaki-kun, Tojo-kun." His tone was mild, yet the room vibrated faintly with the chairman's power. "I take it the sunrise run was invigorating?" "You see everything, don't you, old man?" Naruto muttered, guiding Ruby forward. "Only what the morning dew whispers." Mikagami inclined his head to Ruby. "Welcome, child." Ruby bowed so low her braids brushed hardwood. "Thank you for this opportunity, Chairman." Mikagami rose. "Spare formality. Gakuen Academy was founded to nurture those who stand between worlds. You have demonstrated the courage to reject hatred when offered a gentler path. That is precisely the example our students require." Ruby's throat worked. "I will not fail you." "Good." Mikagami extended a sealed parchment. "This contains your provisional contract, campus access rune, and most importantly the greenhouse master key. Professor Tsucho reports that several rare saplings survived the witch's ranch incident. I believe you might coax them into thriving among kinder soil." Her fingers trembled as she accepted the package. A single tear slid down her cheek, glittering in the lamplight before dropping to the floor. "Now," Mikagami continued, "Uzumaki-kun tells me your lodgings are yet unsettled. The academy will arrange quarters adjacent to the astronomy tower, sunrise views, naturally." He flashed a sly smile. "Perhaps the arrangement might also discourage certain individuals from loitering past curfew?" Naruto coughed. The chairman waved him quiet, already turning toward the tall window overlooking the courtyard. "Dismissed. Classes commence in 40 minutes. I trust you'll escort our newest staff member to breakfast?" "Consider it done," Naruto said. Ruby bowed again, smiling through damp lashes. "Thank you. Truly." As they left, Mikagami's voice followed like a faint breeze. "The sunflower fields will bloom again, Tojo-kun. With proper care, wounds in earth and heart alike find healing." Breakfast in the main dining hall proved a gauntlet Ruby never imagined. News of her survival and appointment had spread faster than wildfire on a dry prairie. First years whispered behind textbooks. Upperclassmen craned necks for a better look at the crow witch who betrayed her coven to save humans. Some faces held awe, others suspicion. Ruby kept her chin lifted, letting Naruto's reassuring bulk absorb most stares. The moment they stepped onto the tray line, a blur of platinum and lilac barreled toward them. "Ruby Nizan!" Yukari Sendo flung herself around Ruby's waist, black wizard's hat flopping askew. The younger witch blinked up through silver-rimmed spectacles, relief shining brighter than the cafeteria's overhead globes. "I double-checked the dressing but still worried," she babbled. "Your mana signature felt stable but you skipped breakfast." "I'm here now," Ruby soothed, stroking Yukari's hat straight. Kurumu Kurono glided up next, teal eyes sparkling devilishly above her tray of fruit parfaits. She inspected Ruby head to toe. "Well, look at you, honorary faculty on day one. I might need to step up my game, Naruto's mates list is getting crowded." Naruto nearly choked on air. "Kuruma!" The succubus only laughed, hooking an arm through Ruby's. "Come sit with us. I'll make sure nobody badmouths you." The envy sharks already smell fresh gossip. At their usual corner table, Sukun Ono waved shyly, cheeks coloring when Ruby's gaze met his. He'd abandoned the battered satchel that once bulged with crammed books. Stronger shoulders now filled out his green blazer, and confidence sat easier in his posture. Yet the gentle boy remained in the way. He pulled a chair for Ruby and fussed with a napkin until she sat. Moka Akashiya arrived last, silver-pink hair cascading over her blazer as she carried extra tea. For courage before homeroom, she explained, pressing a steaming cup into Ruby's hands. Her eyes, emerald and warm, held no measure of caution, only welcome. Surrounded by this mismatched cluster of monsters and humans, Ruby felt the air in her lungs expand until it filled spaces she'd forgotten existed. The faint murmur of gossip at nearby tables blurred into background hum. When Naruto cracked a joke about dorm curfew, and Sukun countered with a pun that made Kurumu groan, Ruby laughed, a clear, ringing sound that turned heads for a kinder reason. The first week of the new term advanced in a lively whirl. Ruby's mornings were consumed by greenhouse inventories, repotting scorched mandragora, pruning baby moon lotus, cataloging dangerous spores behind rune-locked hatches. Professor Sancho, a plant chimera shaped like a walking cedar stump, proved a gruff but devoted mentor. He spoke in deep creaks and showered bark splinters whenever Ruby impressed him with her hex-grafting technique. Afternoons, she shadowed Chairman Mikigami during policy consultations. She learned quickly that running an institution filled with hormone-riddled werewolves and prideful vampires resembled juggling lit torches beside a powder magazine. Her diplomatic instincts sharpened, recalling how Naruto diffused tension with humor while never backing down from principle. Evenings belonged to the newspaper club. Though Ruby's official faculty badge prevented her from rejoining as reporter, she drifted into the clubroom after hours, sipping tea while Yukari argued layout margins with Kurumu and Sukun proofread Naruto's atrocious handwriting. Moka often sat at the windowsill, humming while the last rays painted her hair rose gold. One such evening found them gathered around an open crate that smelled of old parchment and mystery. It arrived by courier owl, Yukari explained, adjusting her spectacles. No sender listed. Just my name on the tag. Inside lay a gilt-edged grimoire sealed with crimson wax. The emblem stamped there, an Ouroboros snake devouring its tail, sent a chill skittering over Ruby's skin. Naruto's eyes narrowed. That crest belonged to Lilith. At the blank looks, he elaborated, an ancient enchantress rumored to manipulate illusions. Kurumu groaned. First mutant sunflowers, now snake witches? Can't we catch a break? Sukun gently lifted the book. Maybe it's harmless. A gift? Ruby felt a tug at her core, a dark echo of her former master's rage. Or a warning, she whispered. The wax cracked under Sukun's curious thumb. A hiss escaped, neither steam nor breath but a spectral success that made the candles gutter. Pages fluttered open of their own accord, settling halfway. Ink began to crawl across parchment, forming letters in a slanted, elegant hand. To the fledglings who meddle with powers unseen. The next bloom of the black moon approaches. When its shadow falls, masks shall shatter and true selves bleed through. Choose wisely whom you trust, for mirrors lie and hearts betray. Below the message, an illustration emerged, the Academy's central courtyard under eclipse, students writhing as monstrous reflections clawed free of their bodies. Kurumu slammed the cover shut. I hate cryptic doom notes. Yukari swallowed. The Black Moon, that's a myth tied to Lilith Mirror, isn't it? A relic rumored to trap souls and reflections. Moka's grip tightened on her teacup. If the mirror were brought to campus, then illusions become reality, Ruby finished, memories of sentient vines and blood-soaked petals resurfacing. She steadied herself. We cannot allow that. Naruto cracked his knuckles, eyes flaring amber. Looks like public safety has its next case. Over the following days, subtle distortions flickered throughout the school. A hallway window showed a student's face twisting briefly into a skeletal grin. Water pooling in a drinking fountain reflected feathered wings where none existed. Reports flooded the security office, whispers from mirrors, shadows lagging a step behind their owners. Naruto, clad in his black and orange officer coat, prowled corridors with heightened senses. Sukune accompanied him, keen eyes spotting disturbances. Ruby and Yukari scoured arcane catalogs, cross-referencing lunar phases with campus ley lines. Kurumu leveraged her popularity to glean rumors, flirting shamelessly where necessary. Moka maintained calm among anxious classmates, her very presence steadying. 3 nights before the prophesied black moon, they convened in the disused observatory perched atop the astronomy tower, Ruby's new residence adjacent. Telescope lenses glinted like giant eyes, star charts littered tables. Yukari tapped calculations. All patterns converge on the courtyard at midnight on eclipse night. Ruby unfurled a schematic overlay showing mirror shards buried beneath flagstones, remnants from an incident decades earlier. If someone reassembles the Lilith mirror there, the focus of reflected moonlight could burst illusions across the campus like plague. Kurumu flicked her glossy tail of hair. So we smash any shard before assembly. Easy. Except shards may already be hidden under wards. Ruby pointed to rune clusters. We need a mage capable of bypassing those seals. All eyes slid to Yukari, who gulped but lifted her chin. I can try, if Ruby-senpai guides me. Naruto slapped the table, grin razor bright. Dream team. Sukune and I will handle muscle, Kurumu scouts, Moka coordinate evacuation contingencies. Plans laid, they broke into pairs to prepare. Late afternoon of the Black Moon Eve painted the sky with ominous tangerine fire. Ruby and Yukari knelt in the greenhouse's central atrium, mixing moon lotus resin with powdered quartz, components for a temporary ward nullification glyph. Their hands moved in sync, silver runes shimmering across the glass floor. Yukari glanced up. Senpai, may I ask something personal? Ruby tilted her head. Of course. Do you ever resent your master? Even after everything? The question hovered like unshed rain. Ruby thought of vines coiling, of gentle lessons before grief twisted them. She considered Mikagami's words, wounds in heart heal. I grieve her, she answered at last. But resentment binds me to pain. She saved me once from hunters, tended fevers, taught me to hear plants sing. The hatred was a sickness that consumed her. If I cling to bitterness, I risk the same infection. Yukari absorbed that quietly, violet eyes flickering over the glyph's light. I want to grow like you. Ruby smiled, brushing a stray silver hair from Yukari's face. You already are. Above them the sky dimmed. The first sliver of unnatural shadow crept across the sun, heralding the black moon's mirror. By the time the full shadow began to cross the moon, Gakuen Academy had gone still. The usual chorus of bats, distant laughter, and whine through the gargoyle mouths was gone, swallowed by a heavy, unnatural hush. Even the air felt different, thick with the prickle of static that raised the hairs on the back of the neck. From the rooftop of the astronomy tower, Naruto scanned the darkened campus. His black and orange officer's coat rippled in the wind, the silver of his badge catching a faint gleam from the rising eclipse. Somewhere beneath the courtyard flagstones, the shards of the Lilith mirror waited for the wrong hands to piece them together. And tonight, under the black moon's influence, the wrong hands would be moving fast. Behind him, Ruby and Yukari finished cinching the straps on their satchels, each bag heavy with prepared spell components. The faint scent of moon lotus resin drifted up from the open satchel flaps, a reminder of the work they had put into the nullification glyphs over the past 48 hours. Kurumu leaned on the telescope's metal frame, her wings already half spread, eyes scanning for movement in the distance. Moka stood beside the stairwell, silver-pink hair gleaming like pale silk in the low light, her calm green eyes fixed on the courtyard far below. Sukune adjusted the gloves Naruto had given him, woven through with faint sealing runes, and rolled his shoulders as though preparing for a marathon. "All right," Naruto said quietly, turning back to the group, "you all know the plan. Yukari, Ruby, you two stick together and get to the shard sites first. Place the nullification glyphs, break the wards, and signal Sukun and me to smash the pieces. Kurumu, you've got aerial sweep, keep your eyes peeled for anyone approaching the courtyard. Moka, you're on crowd control in case the student body starts seeing things they shouldn't." Kurumu gave a sharp nod, though her lips quirked in her usual teasing way. "Don't worry, handsome, I'll keep the skies clear. If anything comes at you from above, I'll shred it before it touches the ground." Moka's smile was calm but firm. "And if anyone panics, I'll make sure they're safe until this is over." Ruby adjusted her gloves, the faint tremor in her fingers belying her steady voice. "We'll get it done. I won't let anyone go through what I did." Yukari touched Ruby's arm briefly, a quiet gesture of solidarity, before glancing at Naruto. "When we give the signal, don't hesitate. Those shards can't survive even a heartbeat in moonlight focus." Naruto's gaze moved across them all, lingering for a moment on Ruby. There was pride in his voice when he said, "You're not the same girl I pulled out of that sunflower field. You've already proven you can stand your ground. Tonight we finish this." They descended the astronomy tower's spiraling iron steps, emerging into the courtyard's perimeter just as the last curve of the moon slipped into shadow. The campus seemed to hold its breath. Windows mirrored shapes that weren't really there. A vampire with blood running down her chin, a werewolf in midshift, students doubling over as their reflections grinned and whispered things too faint to hear. One first year, seeing his mirrored self bare fangs he didn't possess, screamed and bolted toward the dorms. Moka was on him in an instant, calming voice cutting through his panic, walking him back out of the danger zone before the illusion could feed on his fear. Kurumu launched skyward, the soft rush of her wings disappearing quickly into the height. Ruby and Yukari, satchels tight to their sides, slipped toward the first marked flagstone. Naruto and Sukun followed 10 paces back, senses tuned for trouble. When they reached the first site, a stretch of flagstone under the shadow of a half-dead willow, Ruby knelt and slid the nullification glyph from her satchel. Her fingers traced the sigil lines in the dust, the moon lotus resin glittering faintly as she poured her mana into the pattern. The ground shivered. A lattice of pale blue light crawled up the stone, revealing the faint outline of a shard buried beneath. "Seals open," Ruby breathed. Sukun dropped into a crouch beside her, pressing both palms flat. The runes on his gloves flared, and with a short, controlled burst of power, he shattered the stone around the shard. The fragment, a jagged triangle of silvered glass, slid free, gleaming hungrily in the moon's dim glow. Naruto's chakra surged into his palm, forming a Rasengan no bigger than an apple. The fragment disintegrated into glittering dust at the first touch. A faint hiss rose from the air itself, as though the mirror had screamed and died. "One down," Naruto said. "Move." Above, Kurumu's voice echoed from somewhere near the dorm rooftops. "2 figures incoming, fast, from the west side. One of them's not a student." Naruto's head snapped up. "Ruby, Yukari, finish the second site without us. Sukun, you're with me." The 2 men sprinted across the courtyard's outer path, heading for the west lawn. Their shoes slapped stone and then grass as they cleared the last row of hedges and saw them. One was a lanky humanoid with skin so white it seemed made of porcelain, eyes black pits that drank the faint light. The other was a reflection, half-formed and rippling, as though pulled straight from a warped mirror, a twisted copy of Ruby, its eyes glowing a sickly amethyst. Sukun's breath hissed through his teeth. They figured out how to weaponize the illusions. Naruto didn't waste time. Then let's break their toy before they get the rest of the set. Meanwhile, Ruby and Yukari reached the second shard site, this one wedged under the base of the fountain. The water's surface was wrong, reflecting the courtyard not as it was, but as a charred ruin under a burning sky. Ruby's jaw tightened. Ignore it. It's bait. Yukari nodded and began the glyph, her hands steady despite the fountain's whispering illusions. The resin pattern flared, the ward broke, and the shard's outline glimmered faintly under the water. Ruby plunged her gloved hand into the cold, shattering the submerged stone in one decisive motion. The shard shot up, gleaming in the eclipse light. Before she could destroy it, a cold laugh rippled from the fountain's reflection. A mirrored version of Yukari rose from the water, wand in hand, smirking with cruel precision. Go, Ruby ordered, shoving the real Yukari back. I'll hold her. No. I said go. Yukari swallowed hard, then turned and sprinted toward the third site, trusting Ruby to handle her dark twin. Ruby turned back to her reflection, eyes narrowing. You're not me. The mirror Yukari smiled, and the water around her began to boil. By the time Naruto and Sukune reached the white-skinned humanoid, the air shimmered with heat from Naruto's chakra. The reflection Ruby lunged at him with claws formed from razor-thin glass. Naruto blocked with a kunai, sparks flying where metal met mirror. Sukune darted behind the porcelain figure, driving a rune-charged palm into its spine. The thing shattered like ceramic, collapsing into shards that melted into shadow. Naruto locked eyes with the warped Ruby. You're just a shadow of her worst days. You can't stand against who she's become. The reflection hissed and Naruto's Rasengan erased it from existence. Kurumu! He shouted toward the rooftops. Clear path to the third shard? Clear! She called back. Let's finish this. At the fountain, Ruby fought her mirror's assault spell for spell, Moon Lotus energy hissing against the corrupted mana of the reflection. Each impact made the water froth, sending up mist that stung the eyes. She saw, out of the corner of her gaze, Naruto and Sukune pounding across the courtyard toward the third site. She caught her reflection's wrist, forcing the wand down into the fountain's water, and whispered through clenched teeth. I am not you. Light flared, and the reflection exploded into harmless spray. Ruby snatched the real shard from the air and crushed it against the fountain's marble rim. Another hiss, another scream vanished into the night. The final shard sat in the dead center of the courtyard, directly in the black moon's focus. Naruto, Sukune, Yukari, and Ruby converged there, Kurumu diving down to land beside them, Moka arriving from the dorm path with a cluster of calm but wide-eyed students behind her. The shard's light was already intensifying, a beam stretching toward the sky. Within that beam, shapes twisted, hundreds of reflections straining to escape. No time for the glyph, Yukari said, breathing hard. Naruto. Got it. He stepped into the beam, letting his chakra flare to its fullest, the golden aura burning away the edges of the illusions trying to latch onto him. He dropped to one knee, slammed his palm onto the flagstone, and let a swirling Rasengan form right over the shard. Shatter! The beam fractured, the shard split into a million pieces, and the courtyard was flooded with blinding white light. When it faded, the mirrors were gone. The air smelled faintly of rain after a dry spell. The black moon slid away from the sun, and the natural night returned. In the aftermath, they stood together in the courtyard's center. Yukari leaned against Sukune, exhausted but smiling. Kurumu flicked a damp lock of hair from Ruby's eyes. Guess you earned that 8th position all over again. Ruby laughed softly, her shoulders easing for the first time in hours. Couldn't have done it without you. Naruto looked around at them, pride evident in his expression. That's what we do, watch each other's backs. No matter the shadow trying to crawl out. Far above, the bell in the clock tower struck midnight. And for the first time in days, the academy breathed easy again. If you want, I can carry this straight into the quieter aftermath the next morning, Ruby settling into her aide duties, and some more personal moments between her, Yukari, and Sukun, while Naruto fields the chairman's inevitable follow-up about what just happened. A pale sunrise spilled across Gakuen Academy's slate rooftops, painting the lingering dew in shades of gold. The courtyard looked deceptively calm now. The only sign anything had happened was the faint scarring on several flagstones, where Naruto's chakra had burned clean through illusion residue. From the greenhouse windows, Ruby Tojo stood watching the light climb the clock tower. Her gloves were off for once, fingers stained faintly with soil from repotting the rescued moon lotus saplings. They were thriving already, leaves lifting toward the new day as if they hadn't endured decades of warded darkness beneath Witch's Ranch. Behind her, Professor Sincho lumbered in, the cedar-stumped chimera carrying a tray of tea balanced on one bark-textured palm. His deep creak of a voice filled the space. You did well last night. These blooms, they respond to more than skilled hands. They respond to the intent behind them. Ruby accepted a cup, inhaling the steam. I'm not sure it was skill. I just didn't want to see anyone else trapped in their own reflection. Sincho regarded her with his knot-hole eyes, the way an old tree might study a squirrel. Intent is the root. Skill is the branch. And now the branch grows. He left her to the greenhouse hum. Ruby lingered another minute before slipping the gloves back on and heading toward the administration wing. She had an early briefing with Chairman Mikagami, and even after the battle's success, she still felt the pinch of wanting to prove herself. The chairman's office was lit by slanting morning beams through paper screens. Mikagami stood by the window, robe loosely belted, his topknot slightly askew as though even he had been caught off guard by the long night. He didn't turn immediately when she entered. Tojo-kun, he said, voice smooth as aged tea, the black moon's shadow is gone, but the attempt to reassemble the Lilith mirror tells us something. Ruby stepped closer, her boots clicking lightly against the polished floor. That someone is willing to risk unleashing it inside the academy walls. Just so. He finally faced her, the faintest of smiles curling his lips. And that someone may not be finished. Which is why I wish you to remain in your post, indefinitely. The duties of an aide are varied, but you've already shown you can handle both. A warmth flickered in Ruby's chest, part pride, part relief. She bowed. I'll keep my eyes open. And thank you for trusting me? He gestured toward the door. Uzumaki-kun is waiting in the hall. I believe your comrades have their own congratulations to offer. Out in the corridor, Naruto leaned against the wall, arms folded. His officer's coat hung open, revealing a plain black shirt beneath. The corners of his mouth twitched upward when she appeared. Chairman give you the long speech about vigilance? He asked. Ruby arched an eyebrow. You've heard it before? 3 times in 1 semester, he said with a shrug. Means you're in the circle now. Don't take it lightly. She nodded. I don't. Good. He straightened, glancing toward the quad. Come on, Yukari's been bouncing since dawn to see you. And Sukun, well, he's been pacing like he wants to say something but doesn't know how. The newspaper club room smelled faintly of brewed tea and ink. Yukari was perched on the edge of a desk, hat tipped back, a grin splitting her face the moment Ruby stepped in. You're officially impossible to catch up to now, Yukari declared. Last night was incredible, senpai. I mean, you fought your own reflection and still managed to crush the shard. Ruby laughed, a small, genuine sound. It wasn't just me. Yeah, but you didn't flinch, Kurumu put in from the window seat, legs crossed. Not bad for the new girl. She smirked, but the approval in her tone was real. Sukun had been standing near the bookshelves, hands in his pockets. When Ruby's eyes found his, he stepped forward. I wanted to, thank you, he said. If you hadn't handled that shard at the fountain, we might not have stopped the rest in time. Ruby felt the faintest heat rise to her cheeks. We all did what we had to. But thank you. Naruto, lounging in the doorway, let the moment breathe before he clapped his hands. All right, team. That's enough sentiment for one morning. Classes start in 20 minutes, and I'm not letting you slack just because you saved the campus from magical existential collapse. Kurumu groaned. Yukari rolled her eyes. Even Sukun smiled. Later, as the group broke apart to head toward their first period rooms, Ruby hung back for a moment, letting the others drift ahead. The air was crisp, the courtyard sun warming the chill that still clung to the stone paths. She took in the sight of them, Naruto's easy stride, Moka's graceful pace beside him, Kurumu's lazy wing flick, Yukari and Sukun walking just close enough for their shoulders to brush. For the first time since she had set foot on academy grounds as an outsider, Ruby felt a steady certainty she belonged here. Not just as the chairman's aide, not just as a witch among monsters and humans, but as part of something alive and worth protecting. She adjusted her satchel and followed them toward the day ahead, knowing that whatever shadows the next moon might bring, she would face them with these people and they with her. The first sunlight spilling across Gakuen Academy was thin and pale, filtered through the low haze clinging to the peaks beyond the forest. From the dormitory rooftops, the mist looked like a tide just beginning to roll back, revealing stone paths and tiled spires in soft, hesitant pieces. Naruto had been awake for an hour already. Sleep had never been his strongest ally, and after the chaos of the previous night, it wasn't even in the same hemisphere. He leaned against the balcony railing outside his room, a cup of still hot tea cupped between his palms. Below, the courtyard fountain burbled faintly. Ruby Tojo emerged from the west dorm, red cloak fluttering in the breeze, hair still mussed from a too-short rest. She waved absently before veering toward the greenhouse. Kurumu arrived moments later from the other direction, cyan hair perfectly brushed but her eyes holding the faint dullness of someone who'd run too many late-night errands. She caught sight of Naruto and arched a brow. Up early? Or didn't you bother with the sleeping part? Naruto grinned faintly over the rim of his cup. If you figure out how to sleep with mirror dust still floating in your head, let me know. She made a face. Ugh. Don't remind me. The events from the night before hadn't exactly been the kind of fight they could shrug off. The Lilith mirror shard they'd recovered was now sealed under multiple layers of warding in the chairman's archive, but the way it had reached for them, twisting reflections and whispering suggestions, had left more than a few raw nerves. By the time the rest of the club arrived, Moka with her usual morning calm, Sukun clutching a folder of notes like a lifeline, Yukari still chewing on the end of a pastry, Ruby had returned from the greenhouse carrying a satchel of her own. The group drifted into their usual meeting room in the club building, chairs scraping across the wood floor as they arranged themselves. Tamao Ichino's was already there, sitting near the end of the table. She was easy to spot even among Gakuen Academy's varied student body, pale teal hair that fell in smooth waves to her back, sea green eyes that seemed to catch and hold light, and an aura that felt cool, but not in the aloof sense. She wore the standard girl's uniform, though her ribbon was tied loose, and a faint sheen of moisture clung to her skin like she just stepped in from a fog. Naruto had ran into her briefly the night before when she'd helped ferry an injured first year back from the chaos. Moka greeted her first, polite and warm. Tamao-san. I'm glad you could join us. Tamao inclined her head. I owe you all thanks. If you hadn't drawn the shard's attention away from the East dorm, some of my classmates wouldn't have made it out. Her voice was calm but had a faint musical undercurrent, like words spoken just under the surface of water. Kurumu leaned back in her chair. Guess that makes you officially one of us now. Ruby shot her a look. This isn't a sorority, Kurumu. Tamao's lips curved slightly. If it means helping keep that thing from hurting anyone else, I'll accept whatever title you want to give it. Naruto set his cup down and rested his forearms on the table. We need to figure out how the shard got past the wards in the first place. Tamao, you said you saw something before it hit the east dorm? She nodded. A reflection in the courtyard pond. At first, I thought it was a student, but the image was wrong. The ripples didn't match their steps. I went to check, and the surface shimmered, then the shard came through. I only got close because water is my element. It couldn't pull me in the way it did others. Yukari perked up. Right, mermaid resistance to certain enchantments. Especially reflection-based ones if the medium is water instead of glass. She scribbled notes. That could be important. Moka folded her arms lightly. It also means Tamao might be our best choice for dealing with any future attempts to breach through water sources. Naruto nodded slowly. Then she's in. Officially. That earned a faint smile from Tamao, though her gaze drifted toward the window again, as if tracking some invisible current. Sukun flipped open his folder. The chairman wants a full report by this afternoon. And he's concerned there might be more than one shard loose. Kurumu groaned. Of course there is. Because one wasn't enough fun. Ruby exhaled. We'll need to divide patrols. And seal any water sources we can't keep eyes on. Tamao's expression sharpened. If you try to seal everything, you'll miss the places they actually can use. Water flows. If a shard can ride it, it'll pick the paths with the least resistance. I can trace those. That got Naruto's attention. You can map it? She nodded. Given a day. 2 at most. Then that's our first move, Naruto said, decisive. While Tamao maps, the rest of us work on tightening the wards around anything that isn't moving. We regroup tonight. There were nods around the table. Even Kurumu's usual sarcasm faded a little at the clarity of the plan. When the meeting broke, Naruto hung back long enough to catch Tamao before she left. You sure you're up for this? He asked. She glanced up at him, head tilted slightly. You've seen what those shards can do. If I'm the one who can keep them from pulling anyone under, I'd be a coward not to try. Naruto studied her a beat longer, then nodded. All right. Welcome to the team. For just a moment, the cool formality in her eyes eased into something warmer, and then she was gone, slipping into the corridor with the quiet grace of a tide retreating. The day unfolded in a way that left little time for personal space. Between classes, short patrol runs, and the chairman's subtle but constant presence in the background, the group's new dynamic was tested almost immediately. Tamao kept to herself for much of the morning, but she didn't fade into the background the way some first-timers did when thrown into a seasoned team. She took notes during briefings, asked quiet questions when she needed clarity, and most tellingly she never let her gaze wander from whoever was speaking. Naruto noticed it, so did Moka. By midday, she had already mapped several trouble points where the school's existing barriers didn't fully cover connected water sources, mostly ornamental ponds, drainage channels, and a long-forgotten koi pool behind the music building. Naruto crouched beside her in the club room as she spread the map across the table, the parchment still damp in places where she'd drawn with water-resistant ink. Here, and here, she said, tapping the points with a webbed fingertip. All 3 connect through subterranean flow to the main courtyard fountain. If another shard comes through water, these are its most likely entry points. Kurumu leaned over from the opposite side, brushing Naruto's shoulder. Couldn't the wards just be reinforced? Not easily, Ruby answered without looking up from her own notes. The original ward stones for those areas are buried too deep. You need to dig them up and reset them, and we don't have that kind of time without drawing attention. Tamao nodded. Which is why I'll be stationed at the koi pool tonight. It's the least visible, and the most direct route to the courtyard fountain. Naruto straightened, resting his hand against the table edge. You won't be there alone. I'll cover from the rooftops. Kurumu can handle aerial sweep. If something comes through, we hit it fast. Yukari raised her hand like a student about to pitch an idea in class. I can layer an auxiliary glyph over the water surface. It won't stop a shard, but it'll give us a warning pulse the moment something crosses. That works, Naruto said. Do it. The rest of the day passed in a haze of preparation. They worked in pairs, moving from one vulnerable spot to the next, Ruby and Yukari placing glyph markers while Moka and Sukun ran distraction duty to keep curious students from wandering too close. Naruto rotated between teams, keeping eyes on Tamao's progress whenever he could without hovering. More than once, he caught her kneeling at the water's edge with her palm just beneath the surface, eyes half closed, lips moving silently. Later, he'd realize she was listening, following the current in ways no one else on the team could. By late afternoon, they gathered again in the club room to grab supplies and an early meal before night patrol. The light filtering through the high windows was turning amber when Mizore first appeared. She slipped in quietly, almost too easily for anyone who wasn't paying attention. But Naruto noticed the moment the temperature dipped a degree. The girl had lavender hair cut in uneven layers that framed her pale face, a lollipop stick between her lips, and half-lidded eyes the color of ice reflecting a clouded sky. Mizore, Moka greeted, her tone even. I didn't expect you here. Mizore shrugged, stepping further into the room. Saw you moving as a group. Thought something interesting was happening. Her gaze flicked to Naruto, lingered for a heartbeat longer than polite, then slid away again. Kurumu muttered something under her breath about Snow Girl's sneakiness, but Naruto ignored it. Instead, he offered, we're prepping for a patrol. The kind that might get messy. Mizore tilted her head. Messy's fine. Ruby gave her a skeptical look, but the chairman had always said not to turn away help when the danger level was unknown. For tonight, Mizore was told she could shadow the outer patrol route. Naruto caught the faintest curl of a smile on her lips when she agreed. By the time darkness settled over Gakuen Academy, the air carried the chill of the early spring night. The courtyard lights threw long shadows across the flagstones, and the fountain's steady trickle sounded louder than usual in the stillness. Tamao crouched at the edge of the koi pool, fingers brushing the surface, eyes half-lidded in concentration. Yukari's glyph glowed faintly on the water like a submerged star. From his perch on the rooftop above, Naruto scanned the open spaces between buildings, the crosswind carrying the faint scent of damp earth and stone. Kurumu circled overhead, her wings cutting sharp arcs against the starlight. It was Mizore he noticed first, leaning casually against a lamppost near the music building, watching the koi pool with unreadable eyes. The lamplight made her hair glint faintly blue, and her breath left small puffs in the cold air. The warning came as a low, thrumming pulse from the glyph on the koi pool. Tamao's eyes snapped open. Something's coming through. Naruto was already moving, leaping from the rooftop and landing in a crouch beside her. The water's surface rippled not with wind, but with something pushing from beneath. A shard of the Lilith mirror broke through, gleaming like a dagger forged from frozen moonlight. Kurumu dove, claws catching the reflection that rose after it, a warped, half-formed mockery of Tamao herself. The two hit the ground in a tangle, wings and water-slick limbs striking sparks against the stone. Mizore's voice cut through the noise, calm and flat. Duck. Naruto didn't hesitate, dropping low, and a spear of ice whistled over his head, striking the shard dead on. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, but it didn't shatter. Not enough, Mizore said simply, already forming another. Tamao surged forward, water curling up her arms as if answering a call. She caught the shard in both hands, the liquid freezing instantly under Mizore's influence. Naruto drove a kunai into the brittle mass, chakra flaring, and this time the shard exploded into harmless glitter. The reflection shrieked once and dissolved into steam. When the quiet returned, Tamao released a slow breath. That was coordinated. Naruto glanced between her and Mizore. Not bad for a first night on the same field. Mizore just looked at him, that unreadable gaze holding for a moment longer than before. Then she turned and walked back toward the shadowed edges of the courtyard, leaving a faint frost trail in her wake. The courtyard was still settling from the fight when the chairman himself emerged from the shadows between two buildings. His traditional robes swayed with a measured stride, wouldn't get a tapping softly against the stone. Naruto had seen him arrive quietly before, but never without announcing his presence at least to him first. Mikagami's gaze swept over the group, pausing on Tamao still kneeling by the koi pool, her palms resting on the surface as the last ripples faded, and then on Mizore, who lingered half in shadow, the cold around her still sharp enough to bite. It seems, Mikagami said, voice mild, that tonight's patrol proved educational. Kurumu dusted off her skirt, flicking a strand of hair back over her shoulder. Educational's one way to put it. Yukari, cheeks pink from both cold and excitement, was already scribbling notes into the battered journal she carried for fieldwork. The shard reacted differently this time, less like it was trying to pull someone in, more like it wanted to manifest fully. If it can create a whole body from water, it might not need the mirror intact to cause trouble. That, Mikagami replied, is a thought best pursued tomorrow. For now, the priority is sealing the entry points Miss Ichinos has identified. Tamao stood, water sliding off her arms without leaving her clothes damp, a neat trick Naruto suspected was part of her control. I'll walk the path at first light. If any flows have shifted during the night, I'll catch them. Mikagami's nod was almost imperceptible. Good. You are now part of this team, Tamao. That means you'll answer to the same patrol schedule, debriefs, and occasional chaos. His eyes glinted in a way that suggested he found the last part amusing. Naruto smirked. Welcome aboard. Tamao's answering smile was small but genuine. I've worked alone before. This feels different. Better. They moved the debrief to the clubroom rather than standing around in the cold courtyard. Mizore followed without being asked, slipping into a chair near the back. She didn't say much, but her eyes tracked every word and gesture. Ruby set a pot of tea in the middle of the table, while Yukari laid out a crude map showing each known water connection. Moka listened quietly, occasionally interjecting to clarify a patrol route or to point out spots where students often gathered, places they'd have to guard more subtly to avoid panic. When Tamao began detailing the way currents moved beneath the academy, Naruto leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Her descriptions were precise, almost clinical, but there was a rhythm to them like she was reciting the patterns of a song only she could hear. Mizore's voice cut in unexpectedly. You can track it because you belong to it. Water listens to you. It wasn't a question, but Tamao inclined her head in acknowledgement. And ice answers you. The two girls regarded each other for a moment, sea green and frost blue eyes meeting across the table. The current between them wasn't hostile, but it wasn't entirely warm either. Naruto made a mental note to keep an eye on that dynamic. By the time the meeting broke, it was well past curfew. Most of the club filtered off in pairs. Ruby and Yukari headed toward the greenhouse to store their glyph reagents. Moka and Sukun took the path toward the main dorms. Kurumu offered to walk with Tamao, ostensibly to show her the best shortcuts, though Naruto suspected she also wanted to size up the newcomer without an audience. That left Mizore leaning against the wall outside the clubroom door as Naruto locked up. You didn't have to get involved tonight, he said. She shrugged, her breath curling in the cold air. Didn't have to. Wanted to. Naruto studied her for a beat. You were watching us before the shard even came through. Why? Mizore's gaze flicked to his, direct and cool. Because I've seen how you fight. I wanted to see what you do when it's not just you. He wasn't entirely sure how to respond to that, so he settled for, guess you'll get more chances. We're not done with these shards yet. Her lips curved faintly around the lollipop stick. Good. She pushed away from the wall and started walking, not toward the dorms but into the deeper shadow of the campus. See you around, Naruto. Sunlight slanted into the clubroom when the first of them arrived for the follow-up briefing. Ruby came in with her hair still damp from a shower, Yukari trailing behind with 2 stacks of books. Tama was already seated, a rolled chart in front of her. Naruto entered last, rubbing at the back of his neck. Everyone here? Good. Let's finish this. Tama unrolled her chart across the table. These are the complete vulnerable points. I checked them all twice between dawn and now no changes in flow, which means the shard's breach didn't disrupt the system. That's something, Moka said. Ruby pointed to the courtyard fountain mark. If this is the central node, should we fortify it instead of chasing every possible entry? Tamao considered it. We could, but if a shard gets inside the barrier, it could spread through any connected source. It's better to watch the flows and intercept before it reaches here. Naruto nodded. All right. Patrol schedule stays as is for the next week. Tamao's in charge of flow monitoring. Everyone else, rotate coverage. If something slips through, we hit it fast. Mikigami entered just as Naruto finished, his smile faint but approving. Then the Lilith Mirror crisis is concluded. Well done. That night, Naruto found himself back on the same rooftop overlooking the koi pool. The water below reflected the moon in a perfect, unbroken circle, no ripples, no shimmer of danger. He thought about Tamao's steady presence, about how quickly she'd adapted to their pace, and about Mizore's sudden appearance, her sharp aim, and the way her eyes had lingered just a moment longer than necessary. The shards were still out there. But for now, the currents were quiet. Naruto let the quiet settle, knowing it wouldn't last. Because somewhere in that silence, he could almost hear the faint crackle of frost, drawing closer. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comment section how was the story. And also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.